What's up, Digidestins? I'm going to talk about the most controversial card coming in. Well, it's a more controversial topic for BT16, and that is the problem with Ukkomon. Or, let's just state it to the facts, the problem with Bandai in general. So without further ado, let's dive in the video and talk about it. Well, guys, if you missed the last video I did in competition, I recommend it since it was about consistency. Link will be somewhere in this video about it, but looking at Bandai's biggest issue in the balancing of in-house archetypes, let's talk about BT16 since it's a good starting point because that's the issue card everyone wants to hit, and that is Ukkomon. Ukkomon from BT16 literally reads as such, and it reads, when it gets promoted up, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add a Digimon or a Tamer card, and then you basically hatch the egg. It's a 1-cost evolve, which is not terrible, could be a lot pricier, but the fact of the matter is that people are going around saying, oh, it's going to be in every deck. It's going to be everywhere. I want to be straight honest with you. Let's get into it, really. In BT16, the big 3 decks are speculated to be Dog Bunny, aka Terrier Tribal, Imperial Dramon, and Insect deck, aka Tyrant. Those decks don't really see much consistency needing with Ukkomon, and we'll dive a little bit more when we get further into the video, but the runner-up for the best decks goes to the 3 kings themselves, that is Magnamon, Yellow Vaccine, and Numemon. Do you notice something very interesting about the 6 decks I mentioned? That is something very interesting happens when we peel back the layers and take a closer look at the decks themselves. Let's start with Imperial Dramon. Let's take 4 Imperial Dramon lists from JP format, since everyone's looking towards JP lists to get an understanding of how to deck build and how to produce the decks that they want. Well, one isn't like the other here. This one is the only one playing Ukkomon, but if we go 4 more lists down, no more Ukkomons. Let's take a look at key functions of this deck. It's the rookie lineup, which is another thing about consistency. When decks have already the ideal consistency, it's not the problem of a card that is consistent. It's the problem of that the support isn't there for the deck. It wouldn't need Ukkomon. Like Imperial Dramon doesn't need Uku. It has 2 variants, a green base and a blue base. One focuses more on the VMons, the other one focuses on having Wormmon in the deck to play out. If we take a look at it, the key functions of this is huge. You know, if you take a look at the green base Imperial Dramon, it plays both BT12, Wormmon, and Promo that searches out 2 pieces when it's on played, which we are now seeing can come in for free with the new Davis and Ken. These both pieces can search you out a Ken and a piece for your Imperial Dramon line, which is huge for consistency because it continues out the plays and your strategies. And that is huge when we get down to it. Now, if we take a look at blue, only has 1 VMon that does the same thing as Wormmon. It's not the same as the promo. It'll grab you a Tamer and a piece, but the other VMons are only searching out in the 2 color shape department. That is another hindrance on deck design too, is that some piece searchers are only a 1 of search piece, while others have 2 piece searching, giving you options and a possibility of digging deep enough to get the cards you need, because at the time, a lot of decks would just go too fast. And if they can find their pieces first, that is huge. And that's why we take in the account that we do play cards like the memory boost, the trainings, the shuffles, you know, stuff that creates these lines of plays that let you keep board presence or get you to the consistency pieces you need and keep it your turn as well following up. Stuff like this matters when we get into deck design, and we're starting to see this is coming down to a bigger issue than not. Now let's take into a look of Insects, aka Tyrant himself. You can see a small bit of lists playing Uku at 1 to maybe 2, but most start favoring cards like Ukkomon X and Mon that do searching as well for consistency with the deck that has built into them. Consistency engines are really important because you don't want to give up and just play Uku in this kind of list, because you want to be able to go, well, my pieces can search out what I need, and then you climb up from there. And that is very important, because if your archetype can handle it, you don't need Ukkomon. You can just backburner it, because you don't need that extra sense of, you know, oh, this is where we're gonna need consistency. We need consistency. That is very important. And then even with Terriermon, aka Dog Bunny, you don't see many lists that could have Ukus in it, but you do see a lot of them favor their in-house pieces of searching, as well as we can see them play with for free with Double Typhoon's effect. Most of them will opt out to be playing the Terriermon from EX04 and BT8. These pieces are necessity because they're going to search and they're going to come in for free with Double Typhoon. And if you start looking at it, things that just spit out bodies for free means you get more free searching, and that leads to being more value too. And that kind of starts proving that as time goes on itself, there are way too many decks that just have better and better search engines than we do have Ukkomon to really compensate for. Decks start playing Ukkomon to get that consistency because they are missing those parts in general. And those missing parts are a bigger problem at the end of the day than just Ukkomon himself. Ukkomon is a solution to a problem that not every deck can play at a same level, because Bandai just doesn't spread the support well enough. They don't mesh well with game design because they're like, oh yeah, we forget about this card exists, and that leads to being more problems than anything. Things like, let's bring into the layer of consistency is key. Taking a look at some of the lower decks, the hybrid decks at the moment, we know Red Hybrid is one of them that's going to play Uku, because they have great searchers, yes, but Ukkomon just adds that extra blanket and allows more aggression. We already know Red Hybrid kind of stays in the top end, but decks like Yellow Hybrid, Blue Hybrid, they don't have great searchers. Yellow Hybrid doesn't even have a single searcher that'll help it in its requirements. There's nothing that'll search out a tamer for Yellow Hybrid. They have to rely on strictly, something out of archetype. That's why they play Uku. That's why they play the Agumons, to make Marcus be able to punch, because the Agumons will at least search a little bit for your pieces. But I mean, most of the time they're not playing that one. They're going to definitely be playing Uku. They play the good boy Agu that makes a Marcus a punch boy, and then you do see them play the Agu that gains a memory if they have a tamer on board. Stuff like that is vitally important to take into a look of it, because they need the Uku to be consistent enough to be in the format. Telling your deck that a deck you want to be able to play, oh, I need this rare. By the way, guys, this isn't like a super rare or a secret you're going to be at the hunting. This thing's going to be a bulk rare. You buy 2 boxes and you'll have 2. At the end of the day, that is ridiculously cheap and value. I mean, why wouldn't you want to buy 2 boxes at that point and have 2 Ukus so you can just play your decks at full strength? I mean, it's not that terrible of an idea. Even taking into Blue Hybrid that I mentioned earlier, it really only has one Starabimon that can really help. We do have cards like Ukkomon. You can't search Ukkomon either. Ukkomon's going to be able to search and grab you 1 piece in a tamer, and that sees a little bit of play in some lists. They don't show much play in other lists. Like Yellow Hybrid can't really afford playing Boko, and then you can't really afford to play Boko in Blue Hybrid right now because you want to go in as fast as you can. It ends up being that Shirabi's just not strong enough to handle the format by itself. It weighs a lot of its weight on the back of itself, and then you're at the mercy of a lot of other things. Even looking at like a deck like Myotismon coming out, the biggest issue that it suffers is the same as everybody else. They only have 1 good rookie that helps them search. The other ones don't do anything for the deck, and they all just spread out with the Devimon that it doesn't help because they don't know where to go with it. You end up having to tech in Ukkomon, because every Devimon is slightly different to some other extent. They don't combo well with each other. They're just not communicating, and that's very important. At the end of the day, it's more of an issue with Bandai not putting the right support and not the fact that Uku's in every deck statement. We do know decks like Numemon rely heavily on Uku, and it doesn't have any rookies to call its own. It really doesn't. It has no consistency pieces outside of, you know, its normal championship line. And that's a little bit of a problem. It doesn't take advantage of anything there. Stuff like that is very important. And then similar to why the lower tier decks rely on it as well, it's just the limits of Bandai has made when they switched to an all archetype theme back in BT, like what? BT 6 is when they kind of went all archetypal, aka the Agumon card game, where they just printed so many Agumon variants back to back to back to back, and people were just screaming Agumon card game. Instead of screaming ban Uku, how about we start saying Bandai? We need more in archetype searchers that are good. The Ukkomons become less of a requirement when, and more of a spice that we kind of take on this monster. Do I think it's going to be played in every deck? No, I think that's a big thing. I think it's not going to see play in every deck. It's got to be played in decks it needs the support. Do I expect it in a lot of tier 2 decks and lowers? Yes. The reason is Bandai's bad at properly supporting decks that need them. Only focusing on main characters has hurt the Digimon brand a little bit, and they got so many powerful tamers and Digimon and everything like that it creates this vacuum where other decks just don't have the greatest support. They have to rely on a powerhouse. And I know one of the biggest things, like, well, if you can't play your deck, you shouldn't exist at all by taking the Uku away. Well, I mean, yeah, you take the Uku away, those decks disappear. They really do. They don't keep up with the format well enough anymore because of that issue. And the format's not even toxic, to be straight honest with you. There's many good decks, there's so much potential, and with that, you have to take that with what you want to weigh in. And why are we trying to hinder stuff? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all Digimon kind of news. And guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.